loved his friends. And so, like many of us, he has, genetic family, right? The family you're born with. And then he had the even better part of his family, which is the family he chose. And so we're going to say the names of some of the people, and you may not get your name said, but you know who you are if you were his chosen family. So he's survived by his sister, Julie Lovejoy, and her partner, Tony. Nephew, Nicholas Means. Niece, Rebecca Means. Beloved daughter, Michelle Chambers. And evidently he liked you too, Steve. So you're involved somewhere in there. Who he really, really loved is Mason and Lily. He's survived by his long-term girlfriend, Ann. Ann Goldman's here. She'll be sharing with you in a little while. She's here too. Colette Lovejoy, the one and only. Great friend, former wife, and her husband, Jerry Bryden. And the young ones, Bryden, Summerlin, Autumn, and Cody Bow. Cody Bow is his newborn namesake. He was a really fortunate guy. He had a lot of friends, people who loved him. And not everybody does, I'm a pastor, so I do all kinds of stuff. But one of the things I do is I do memorial services. And sometimes I do memorial services where there's just literally like one person there. And they say, oh, this guy who's passed away, or this woman, and they're just a mean bastard. And I've had that experience more than once. And so to see all of you out here in support and love of this guy means he did a good job at loving. And I know that it's a comfort to his family that you're here. So I said, I'm a friend of Chris's. I didn't know him super well, but over the years, through music, through extended family, and through some weird kinds of faith-related stuff, Chris and I have become friends. And I was trying to think of, what I'd share with you just briefly that really was true about Chris. And it's something that I love to share at a situation like this. It says, it's written by James, Jesus' little brother, half-brother. He says, every good and perfect gift comes down from above, from the Father of the heavenly lights, who doesn't change like shifting shadows. It says every good and perfect gift comes down from God, that there's a God who loves us. He brings down gifts into our life. And I think the most powerful, important gifts that you and I are ever going to have in our life are the people that love us and that we love. And that's a gift. Now, Chris wasn't a perfect person, right? Some of you just, I got a story. He wasn't a perfect person, and neither are you, so don't get too stoked, anybody, all right? But here's the deal. He wasn't a perfect person, he's a perfect gift. He's a perfect gift. That the Heavenly Father said, hey, I'm gonna bless these people by bringing this unique, custom-designed, one-of-a-kind guy, and I'm going to put him into the midst of their life to bless them. And that's exactly what happened. He was a blessing. He was in a bunch of bands, Lovejoys, Reactors, Psychedelic Summer, Babylon's Sister, probably a bunch of other bands that didn't have a name or had a different name every gig. He's a card-carrying member of the Thousand Oaks Guitar Army. Yay, Tom. He was a guitar guy. He was a musician. And I think what people don't remember is the vitality and importance of musicians in bringing joy and comfort and medication to people that live in a world that's just kind of off and difficult. And so Chris used the gifts that God gave him to bring joy to people through his guitar. And if you experienced that or you got to partner with him in that, recognize, man, that's a gift. He made the world a better place because he brought music into it. And music heals and it soothes and it gives joy. And sometimes just temporary relief. And that was a bit of his deal, right? He also brought humor in. If you know Chris, he had a screw loose and it just made it so awesome to be around him. Don't you just love people that have that kind of, there's something not quite right there, but it's super fun? And God bless him, if that's the case. Now, the people who need to share are the people who knew him deepest, longest, and closest. And there'll be a little time for some of you to come and share just in an open mic thing in just in a little while. But we have some people who prepared some thoughts who are going to come and share. And so Michelle's coming with Colette. And Lily, are you coming up too?
Yeah, right. That's okay. All right. Thank you all for coming today. I'm sorry I have to read this off my phone, else I will totally forget it. You know what? Thank you, Tony. So, thank you all for coming today. We are truly blessed to have all of you here. Already? All right.
I'm right there with you, Sean.
Thanks. All right, standing up here today is intimidating. Because as we all know, Chris had the gift of words that I can never hold a flame to. So instead I'll read you some of his own. And one of his mentors. He wrote to my mom after the loss of her mother, and it definitely took on a different meaning when we lost Chris. He wrote, "The older we get, the more things are taken from us. That life is a long and endless lesson in learning to let go. Nothing ends in eternity. Our passing, our death is a gate, not the end." And he also said that you know that what they say that when we pass, not everyone will remember us for our endeavors, but they will, and the things that we said throughout our lives, but they will always, always, always remember the way that we made them feel. He also quoted Marilyn Sewell. "If we live long enough in this world, we will have our hearts broken. Do they heal? Well, maybe not fully, completely, or ever. But in the cracked and broken pieces, that's where the light shines through. We walk through the world forever after with more depth, more sensitivity, more compassion. Our love affair with the world begins with a broken heart, and grief turns out to be our best teacher. It comes with loss and hangs around like a faithful dog until we learn what we need to know." He's here, you guys, he's here. All right, it's so true.
I was wondering.
Yeah. I'm sure some of you wonder why I call Chris Dard. Well, it's a nickname, and it's a play off the word dad. I have a wonderful dad, and I had an awesome Dard as well. I always said that I won the parental lottery, and it's 100% true. I really did. I don't think I ever met sorrow completely until the day that we lost him. Brokenhearted is an understatement. Well, I guess the only way to deal with grief is through it, right? So I will talk about you and think about you every day, Dard. I will embrace the lessons you taught me. I will laugh and make things funny like you did. And I will always find that song and the music that helps me through life's troubles. I will always remember how much you believed in me. How much you loved our family. Sorry, and our big, big love for your grandchildren. See, great. They will miss you, your grandchildren, and they will miss you forever, as will I. Your unconditional love and your incredible gift as their Papa Dard. His beautiful soul and his magical spirit, his gift of laughter, his patience, his understanding, and something will never be topped. You are my dad. You are my Dard. My best friend. My mentor. And will always be 100% magic to me. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm short. I haven't grown. As Michelle said, thank you so much for coming today. So what I had to say is very short, although I could go on forever. But Chris, I miss you every day. For me, the world was a better place as long as I knew you were in it. The Chris, as we all know, is a one-of-a-kind word slayer. He had the gift of gab and was a storyteller like no other. When he walked into a room, he loved to make everyone laugh, even if it wasn't public consumption. Chris was my friend, my husband of 34 years. We met when we were in our 20s. We were in many bands together and loved making music for so many years. I only wish that he would have kept playing because he was such a great musician. Music was part of his soul. I thank God when I called him 3 times on a Friday before his passing that he picked up. He didn't own a cell phone. He had a hard line. He picked up and we talked about how he was feeling for quite a long time. Our phone calls were never short. My phone battery would be at least 1% left, so with that I'd have to say goodbye. And goodbyes for Chris were never easy. They were always a long goodbye. People who know him, it's hard to get him in the car. Yeah. When I think about it now, I'm so grateful as I was able to tell my friend of 40 years that I was getting married, and his last words to me were, "Oh, wow. Well, if you're happy, I'm happy for you." And not everyone gets that chance to tell their friend about big changes in their lives before things take a turn. I miss his laugh, his stories, his songs, our phone calls, and his amazing big love for his family. Chris, I know you are now walking in the light of the love of the Lord. And until we meet again, my friend, I will always love you and miss you with all my heart until we meet again.
Ann, are you still in the vicinity? Ann Goldman's going to come up and share her recent relationship and love for our friend.
Chris and I were incredibly lucky to have found love and companionship later in life. We both happened to have recently ended decades-long marriages when we met, but aside from that similarity, we were in many ways different people. I'm a type A, while Chris referred to himself as a type C. He fondly, sometimes with a hint of annoyance, he called me Annie Planny when I fussed over some little thing. I like to have structure and plan ahead, while he preferred to go with the flow and could lose track of time, especially saying goodbye to someone. But our differences kept things interesting and helped us grow, to say the least. What we did share was an appreciation for one another's intellect, loving spirit, humor, and the joy and sparkle we brought to each other's lives. Soon after first meeting Chris, my daughter Glenna thanked him for bringing my smile back after I went through a tough year of divorce, relocation, and the death of my mom. I have never felt so accepted, loved, and appreciated for exactly who I am, or as he would say, for about 98% of me. He was affectionate, generous, kind, and nurturing. He had a huge heart, along with a crude and sophomoric sense of humor, which he tested out on me in our initial correspondence to see if I could handle it. Glad to say that I passed with flying colors. He loved to embarrass me in public, which I know that Colette, Michelle, Julie, and many of you also got to enjoy for many more years than I did. Chris's huge commitment to family above all else was evidenced by his devotion to Julie and Michelle and their families. He was a loving caregiver for his father, mother, and grandmother. His emphasis on the importance of family led me to heal rifts with 2 of my siblings. When my brother and I had some misunderstandings over my mom's estate, Chris's words were simple and direct. "He's your brother, just fix it." Our different perspectives on things were shared with respect. I certainly learned a lot from him, and I believe he also learned a lot from me. Almost every day, we expressed our love for one another in one way or another. But don't misunderstand. We also reveled in snarky comments and sarcastic humor. It definitely wasn't all mushy sentiment. Chris would undoubtedly be quite embarrassed to hear me share this personal stuff with you. Too bad, honey, payback is a bitch. But I wanted to share with you a side that you may be unfamiliar with. That was the bedrock of our relationship for over 6 wonderful years. I didn't know him nearly as long as most of you did, but I wanted you to know who he was to me and how very glad I am that I had the opportunity to share with him so much love and joy, for which he coined another favorite nickname for me, Sprinkles. Chris's death has left a deep, deep hole in my heart, and I'm sure for most of you as well. Then I remember the richness he brought to my life and to everyone he knew. In those moments, I can savor the joy of having known him. I'm hoping that memories of Chris and the impact he had on each of us will sustain us through this loss until we see him again. I know that he will be waiting with a huge smile, open arms, and a funny story.
Thanks, Ann. Nephew Nicholas, are you here? Nicholas? He's on his way. Ah, Julie's going to share. This is Chris's sister.
Okay, Mom, that's all right.
Hi, I'm Julie. Chris's sister. My brother was a hilarious man. No one could tell a story better than he. Even family stories that happened to other people, we would defer to Chris and let Chris tell the story because he did such a great job of it. He also had this uncanny ability to make stuff up on the spot and with an absolutely straight face. My parents used to have dinner with him once a week at their favorite place, Denny's. I know. Well, they all got to know the wait staff on a really first name basis because they were there all the time. But then my father passed away, and my mother in fairly rapid succession. And the next time Chris went to Denny's, he faced the inevitable question. So how are your folks? Where are they? With a straight face, he said, "Oh, they retired and moved to the Big Island. They're thrilled and we're so happy for them." And that stopped all further questions immediately, and he never had to explain their illness or their death, and everybody was happy. After that, they'd say once in a while, "Hey, how's Hawaiian life treating your folks?" And he'd go, "Oh, it's fantastic. In fact, I'm flying out there next week. I'll tell them you said." Everybody nods and goes away happy. That was classic Chris. Chris was a dedicated foodie with an amazing palate. The stuff he made me eat at sushi bars. But he was also an incredible cook to boot. Every holiday at my house, it was Chris's job to make the gravy. Because nobody made gravy the right way. He'd show up with a mysterious little cardboard box full of stuff, his special ingredients. He couldn't use my salt. No. He had to bring his own salt. He'd get to work, go hanging over the stove, and every family picture shows Chris in the kitchen, hunched over the stove, stirring the gravy. He'd get into this Zen space. Nobody could talk to him. He wouldn't talk to anybody. And then it was always magical. He had this touch. It was incredible gravy. I know that's silly, but it was amazing. Chris had quite a bit of paperwork that he left behind, and it was my job to go through that paperwork. And I found more than one notebook full of song lyrics he had written. And a lot of them were in process. He was still working on them, you could tell. And I would find these glorious ballad lyrics written on a page, and then a blank line, and below that, a French-dipped sandwich menu he wanted to try out. Menu after menu after menu. And then another verse of the song, the same song. And it was, and in the margin, more notes about food, about grocery lists he needed to make. And it was sort of all weirdly blended into the song lyrics, so that the notebooks became like this stream of consciousness of my brother between music and food. Music and food. Until you almost couldn't tell which was which. as you guys all know by now, Chris was a family man. Family always came first. In 2008, I had a life-threatening emergency surgery. And when I opened my eyes at the end of it, the first face I saw was Chris's. He had been there the whole time with Tony, waiting for me to come out of this long surgery. After that, he called me every day until I was stable again. And then every other day. And then every 2 days. And then every 3 days, and on and on. He was like a dog with a bone. He couldn't let it go. In fact, he has never missed a family dinner, a holiday, my kids' birthdays, even my grandkids' birthdays. I mean, he was dedicated. He was there for everything. My 7-year-old grandson, Braden, lives 3,000 miles away from me. And Chris knew how important those twice-yearly visits were. And on my birthday one year, I was babbling on about going to visit Braden in a few days. And after dinner, Chris pulls out this odd-looking box and hands it to me. Inside were about 4 different magic tricks for young children. Chris had made those tricks by hand to give to me so I could wow my grandson with. I carefully packed them up, took them back east, and every one was a hit. I was utterly magical to my grandson for about 7 minutes. But Chris didn't wait for Braden to come visit us so Chris could, dazzle him himself with these tricks. No, he did it so I could be the star. It was the most loving gift anyone could ever give me, to make me a hero in my grandson's eyes. This man had such a big heart and was so enamored of family that even my grandchildren loved him. So while they're still young, and if they ask me, whatever happened to Uncle Bo? I can say, yeah, honey, he retired. And he's living the high life on the Big Island. Yeah. Aloha, my brother. Aloha.
Nicholas is going to come up. As you were telling the story about his mystical box of something that goes into his gravy, I think I know what was in the box.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nick. I'm Chris's nephew, or to me, he was Uncle Bo. I just wanted to share a quick story with you because it kind of describes. You don't hear me okay? It kind of describes our relationship. I felt a lot of humility between the two of us, and a lot of laughter. When I was about my son's age, about 7, Uncle Bo thought it'd be a great idea to take me fishing. My parents had recently divorced, and him having the big heart that he had, he just wanted to get me out and do something a little different and just enjoy some time together. So we went fishing out at the Ventura Pier. And that day, he takes me out to lunch. We go to McDonald's. He's talking to me about what we do with the fish after we get them. And I know some of you have probably heard the story before, so just bear with me here. But he's talking me through everything that we do after we catch it, and clean it, and trimming it all up. And the one part that sticks out to me and all that is cutting the head off of the fish. Obviously, to a 7-year-old, that's the most keen part of this process. So anyway, we're out fishing on the pier, and we've just been hanging out, talking, and suddenly my pole gets a bite. And so he gets me on it and helps me start reeling it in, and suddenly we notice, like, this is actually kind of a big pole. And there's a lot of people out there on the pier, and everyone's starting to take notice that this small 6-7-year-old kid has now got this pretty big bite on his pole. So we're fighting it in, and he's looking over and he sees what it is, and he's handing the line back in, and we get it flopped up out on the deck there, and it's a big bat ray just sitting there flapping away, and everybody's like, oh yay, like the little boy got this huge fish. And I'm looking at him, I go, do we get to cut its head off now, Uncle Bo? When do we get to cut the head off? You said we cut the head off. And there's my Uncle Bo sitting there with all these people going, oh, boo, boo, boo. And that was the kind of humility he and I had between each other. A lot of love and a lot of laughter, and he's shown me ideally how to share a lot of emotion as a man. I know for a lot of us men, emotions are not our forte. Let's put it out there. But Uncle Bo definitely knew how to express himself and how to know that you were loved. And that's what I'm going to miss about him most. Thank you.
So it's traditional and it's excellent to have time for people who didn't prepare something to come up and share something. And we'll take a minute or two to give people time to think about it. We're going to invite you, if you have a story, and it doesn't have to be totally appropriate, just so you know, because Chris would like it if it wasn't. But if you have a story or something that really struck you about him, we would just ask you to kind of keep it shorter rather than longer so we can have time for a few people. Afterwards, there'll be time for everybody to share in the groups that you want to share. So, if you're kind of thinking, I might want to share something, think on it, edit it down, and who wants to go first? Is there somebody standing behind me? Come on.
Hi, can you all hear me? Go move over there. My name's Tony. I'm Julie's, Chris's sister's wife. Chris was neither a respecter of authority nor rules. I'm a respecter of both, pretty much. And Julie made reference to the life-threatening surgery that she had a number of years ago. And she was transported from Ventura to Santa Monica by ambulance, and we followed in a caravan of cars. And when we got there, while they were transferring her up, I was trying to park my car and run to get up there to be with her, and so was Chris. And Chris and I got up to the ICU, and the two of us barreled into her room in the ICU like the Keystone Cops. And her nurse, of about 1 billion years old and very red hair, known as Red, looked at us and said, "Get out." And that stopped him. He followed that authority. And the two of us kind of stumbled out and went down, and we were led to a waiting room. And when they got Julie in her room and settled, we were led back. And when we went in, she looked at me and she said, "You will sleep on the blankets that are in that. You'll undo that seat over there and make a bed, and you'll sleep there." And she looked at Chris and said, "You won't sleep anywhere." And Chris just nodded like, "Yeah, okay. Okay, good. Yeah, no, yes, ma'am, yes." So the next day was Julie's surgery, and Chris had gone home, and he came back and he sat with me throughout the entirety of the very long hours of that surgery. And when it was over, a nurse came out to the waiting room and said to us, "She's in recovery. She did well. The surgery went well. And you'll be able to see her when we transport her back up to her room." And the nurse turned around and went back through the double doors. And Chris jumped up and went and slammed open the double doors. I said, "Chris, where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to see my sister." And he went through the double doors having no idea where he was going in the bowels of this hospital, and made his way to the recovery room without, and I followed him, of course, without anyone stopping him. And he went into the recovery room, and he moved from bay to bay, and he found her. So his was the first face that she saw. And it made me grateful for the rule breaker that Chris was. Thank you.
Hey, if a couple of others would like to share, would it be great if you just kind of came and queued up over here? Would be great. Anybody else want to share? He's on his way. He's on his way. You know, Tony, I married a redhead, and I totally understand that when they tell you what to do. Just, yes.
Hello, I'm Ron Allen. I knew Chris in 1975. I came back from a couple of years in Europe. I was looking for somebody to play guitar with and work with. Tried a bunch of people out, and then I met Chris, and didn't have to look any farther. That guy was so unique, so funny. I mean, this picture says it all. love and joy came out of this guy. And we used to play all of the, the Lobster Trap and all those places up in Ventura. And Chris was only 19 years old. I gave him the first professional gig he ever had. And we were able to get in all these bars, even though he was 19. And we had some funny gigs. One time, I think it was the Lobster Trap that had that boat.
Yes.
If you guys remember. And me and Chris, we had a habit of smoking some dope before. Yeah. And we'd roll up the windows in the car, stupidly, and smoke, and we'd go in smelling like, And so we start playing, and I look over at Chris. He's like this, drool is Chris, hey, man. So he was so funny. We had a gig, I don't know if you remember Orlando's, it was on the boulevard.
Oh, yeah.
Way back. Yeah, Mr. Orlando would hire us. And that place never had anybody in there, maybe 10 people. And so Mr. Orlando, we played there a week. And he said, if you change your name, we could put a different name up on the marquee and we might get more people in. So, yeah, all right, we're Cadillac next week. So there when Cadillac, people would come in and see us, same guys, what are you guys doing? I don't know, it was hilarious. But I missed the guy so much. He was so funny. And just something about him, he was so unique. One in a million, fine musician. He worked with Colette, who's one of the best singers I've ever heard. And yeah, you are, you're good. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. We miss Chris, and there's only one like him. I wish there was more.
Hi everybody, my name's Dave. I've known Chris since about 1967 or so, when I was just a youngster. Hung out with him all through his bands, met Colette. Hadn't seen him a whole lot in the last few years, but we still were talked on Facebook and what have you. I've got a story that I'd like to share with you that would really make you laugh. I'm a cook also. So I'm at the market, I'm pushing my cart around, going to the chickens and I'm going to the turkeys and what have you. So just walking around, filling up my stuff, and I stopped to look at something in the meat section. And I'm looking at prices and I'm looking at this and I'm looking at that. And all of a sudden I turn around and I'm thinking, well, here's some, I turn around and I'm looking for my cart. And because the cart that's next to me has like a turkey in it and a big thing of lobster and like 3 racks of ribs and all kinds of eggs and all this stuff, and I'm all, this isn't my cart. So I'm, scratching my head. This is about 10 years ago on the market. So I'm looking down another aisle thinking somebody grabbed my cart. But then I noticed there was a few things in the cart that were mine, and I'm just like, wait a minute, this is my cart. So where did this turkey come from? And where did this ham come from? And where did all these racks of ribs come from? With these lobster tails? I'm like, I can't get this. So all of a sudden I turn around and I hear this and Chris pokes his head around the corner and he goes, is that your cart there, Dave? And I'm just like, oh, you son of a bitch. So he goes, yeah, I figured you could just pick those up for me. So I'm unloading all the stuff out of my cart going, I don't want this stuff. I don't want this stuff. So we chatted for a little while. Again, we had known each other since I was maybe 7 or 8. And we both lived in Casa Caneo. And the last time I talked with him on Facebook, that was probably 2 years ago. He sent me I had been taking care of my mom, who wasn't doing well and has since passed on. And Chris on Facebook, he just kind of was a political guy and whatever. But he said, and again, we've known each other a long time. He's all, I'm really proud of the way that you're taking care of your mom, and I'm proud to call you my friend. And that really stuck with me. And anyway, I'm proud to call Chris my friend too. And I'll miss him a lot.
Yeah, I know I need to bring it down. I'm Shirley, and many years ago I had the pleasure of being in a band with Colette and Chris, and it was packed with talent and the occasional ex-boyfriend, and we had a lot of good times and made some really good music. But I'm sure everybody has already shared about how smart and funny and just quick Chris was. And one of my favorite anecdotes was we were playing at the Palms in Carpinteria, where you could cook your own steak. And Tom was there, but he was in the audience. I think it was after you weren't in the band anymore, or I don't remember how it came to be. But Chris was on stage. They were playing a song. I was off stage on that one too. And all of a sudden, because Tom was in the room, Chris grabbed a bar towel. He always kept a bar towel because he could work up a sweat when he was playing. And he grabbed the bar towel and he threw it over his fingering hand. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I don't want him to steal my riffs. And I just, that was so Chris, who we all miss very dearly. What's that?
Didn't work.
It didn't work. Did it anyway. That's all I have.
Lily just said she wanted to say something. Whoa. Jimi Hendrix, 1969. She wanted to share a little something with you, so.
I wanted to say how I love him. He was he was making my heart so happy. I just wanted to play with him so much. He made my heart so happy. I just wanted to play with him every day when he came to my house.
Hi everyone, my name is Dalton MacDonald, son of Curtis. I remember Chris when I was a young boy. Whenever my dad used to play with Chris, he would always take me to the different concerts and all that, and Chris would always just rattle me on or something like that. I was young, didn't really know what was going on, but he was always there and very loving to me. Now, this story is very dear to me, and I remember it fondly because it taught me how much he encouraged my art and my creativity. So, I used to live up in Paso Robles, up north, and there was a time where I had dogs and spray paint cans. For some odd reason in my creative mind, I saw one of my dogs defecate on the sidewalk, and I was thinking, spray paint. What if I color this? And in a weird Dadaist type of art form, I was thinking, oh yeah, let's put a little bit of green, a little bit of blue and all that. And then my mom found out. And then I got in trouble and got grounded with Snow TV for months. But I remember coming, it was a month before summer, and that was when during summer vacation, I would usually come down to hang out with my dad for 3 months. During one of those months, Dad took me to City Walk, and Chris Lovejoy was playing a concert there at the City Walk Plaza. And I remember Dad telling Chris the story of what I did, because my mom called my dad that day when I spray painted the piece of shit on the floor, and she was like, "What the hell is your son doing?" And my dad's response was, he's just being creative. He's just being an artist right now. Just let him be. But of course, my mom and her thinking was otherwise. So anyway, Dad's telling the story to Chris at City Walk, and Chris's eyes light up. I have never seen this guy light up so hard before. And he just looks at me, and he's just giving me the thumbs up. He's patting me on the back. He's saying, "I am so proud of you." And here's me. I'm 9, 10 or something like that. Didn't really have that much life experience. And to me, I felt embarrassed at first. I was like, oh no, why are you applauding me? But it didn't take me until a little couple years later that I understood that he was encouraging my art. That he was like, no, keep on doing with what you're doing. Yeah, you're doing weird stuff, but that's just going to evolve into other stuff. Ever since he passed, I've been making more art in his honor. I've been trying to incorporate pieces of him into my art. I'm going to miss him a lot. He has always had something weird to say. The times at the fair when he picked up a corn dog off the ground and went back to the corn dog dealer, it wasn't even his to begin with, but he's like, hey, can I have a refund for this? Can I get a new one? And I'm like, I'm just watching him, I'm like, you just picked that off the ground. You just found this and you're trying to get a refund for it? Oh, okay, that's just Chris. That was Chris. But to me, I'm gonna miss him a lot. I love him dearly. It's amazing to see so many people that I truly don't know, but you probably remember me when I was young, but I don't remember you because it's been so long. But other than that, it's great to see the love that Chris had for all of us and to see so many people out here sharing the love of this amazing, incredible human being. Thank you.
Yeah, I got a little tall suddenly. My name's Curtis, and 41 years ago, about 2 weeks after my birthday, I got a brand new Crumar synthesizer. It was a pounded beast, okay? And Robbie Edwardson comes up to me and he goes, hey, we know this guy. He's like on Skyline Drive. And, you know, the house is just in the middle of shit, and we can play as loud as we can, and no cops. And I'm like going, oh, awesome, let's go. So it's like first, second week of March, 1982. And I show up, and I'm like going, my God, this is like a hop and a skip from my house. This is great. And I meet Chris for the first time, and he just lit up. And I haven't played a note, I haven't done anything, I just notice this magnitude. And he is just funny, and he picks up his guitar, and he just starts noodling. And I'm like going, oh, I get on my roads, I just start noodling, and then we start communicating a solo. He does like a motive, I do a motive, and our eyes are locked. And I'm like going, oh my gosh, I found my brother. And and we had so many wonderful gigs. Colette, Robbie, Adam, myself. And the memories are crazy. A lot of crazy memories at that house. And I think one of the favorites is we were all intoxicated on something. And we were out, and Colette had this blue Toyota, okay, and just parked out there. And he grabs the guitar, just like, you know, an acoustic guitar. It's not worthy of much because he just goes whip, whip, and throws it up. And we all watch it. All of us are just amazed on whatever we're on. And Priest was there, that's right. And we watch it go, and it just goes, bam, right on the windshield. And Colette's just like, what the fuck? You know, and all of us are just going, wow. You know, it's just like the best time of the day. But this you know, those type of antics, and I mean, from going into a Ralph's and just opening and picking and making sandwiches and having lunch and then just walking out. Things like that, you know. The things that were amazing that he would encourage, but I would encourage him, and he, like the brother I never had, you know, he recognized my talents. And I remember when I went off to Cal Arts in '83 and that chapter closed. And I missed him dearly, but I was able to come back and have another chapter with him. And, you know, sorry to say that for the last maybe 10 or 12 years, we didn't really communicate very much together. You know, we have our Facebook and our social media and stuff. But, you know, he always encouraged my art, and I was like, you know, there's only one person when I started writing. You know, I would sit down and start writing. You know, and I'd grab my emotions from all aspects of my life. But Chris is always there, and he will always be there. And I love you, brother.
We have time for like one or two more people. Does anybody else want to come share? Ann, come on up. and it's going to come up. And if you're thinking you want to share something but you're not sure you can, there'll be time afterwards. But you'll have one last chance after Ann. Okay?
I want to hear it.
I'm going to need some help with this one from members of the band. He told me a story about when you guys played some music at the top of Holiday Inn, was it? And after the party, or whatever it was, weddings, whatever it was, there's lots of food left over. And he loved throwing it off the top floor. I don't know if anyone could tell the story better.
It's the story.
What?
It's the story.
That's the story.
It's a long way down.
I can't hear. Yeah.
Plates.
Plates?
Yeah.
Oh, plates. Oh, I thought it was pizza and cake. He probably took that home. All right, thanks.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Well, you know, if you live a life with some kind of freedom, there will be stories. If you're a musician, there will be stories. If there's intoxicants involved, there'll be awesome stories. Everybody here has a story about Chris. And I encourage you, we're going to be done in just a few minutes. And when we are, man, hang out and tell your stories. He was a storyteller. He would want you to tell your stories. It's a great way to remember an excellent life, right? So I knew Chris. He's a local guitar player. He grew up not far from me, but he was a couple of years older than me. So, you know, in high school, that means like, you know, you don't even see the people who are beneath you in high school. But over the years, I got to know Chris. He also was kind of an extended family member through other extended family members. And of late, there's something about Chris that if you haven't been around him a lot lately, you might not know. And that was that Chris had kind of an internal, personal, spiritual life. Like I said, I'm a pastor, and right now what I do is I do work mostly in Africa, Southeast Asia. I just go and I help guys who are doing ministry work in places that's really, really hard and where they just need some encouragement and training. So that's what I do. And Chris picked up on that, and he would just shoot me notes. You know, I'd be on Facebook, and I'd be, hey, I'm here in Rwanda, you know, I got really sick. And he would just send me encouraging notes constantly and just say, man, I love what you're doing. I love your heart. I just want to encourage you. And you heard many people here say, he encouraged me in my art, he encouraged me in my music. And that was something that was true about him. And in the last few years, he just was developing more and more as kind of a spiritual seeker. Seems to be something that was quiet in his life. But I know that when a guy named Jack Hayford died, he was kind of a famous pastor, and I put up a note. I go, man, a good guy has left the building. And I picture Jack Hayford. And Chris said, man, I love that guy. He goes, I listened to tons of his sermons over the years. And I was like, really? I didn't know that. And he just kept encouraging me in the work I was doing. It's just trying to help people who are helping people. And I really realized that Chris was on a spiritual journey. He was a spiritual seeker. He did that in a quiet way. He wasn't overt with it. In speaking with Ann, she mentioned he had this spiritual nature. There's a spiritual part of him, and that he would share Bible verses with her. Things like that. So he was on a spiritual journey. He was certainly a seeker. I don't know where he ended with his journey. I'm not sure what he thinks about Jesus or God or, you know, Allah or who. I don't know. But I do know that he was greatly encouraging to me in my friendship with Jesus and my desire to help others because of it. And as I said, he was a gift to everybody. And for me, to be honest, there's times I come home from like Africa or something in Cambodia, and I'd be like really physically tired, and sometimes it's really hard. And he would just be, right on, buddy. Keep doing it. And I expect that from like my ministry pals, right? That's what they're supposed to do. But Chris just continually did that. He was on a spiritual journey. He was a seeker. I know, even though I don't know where he found himself in his belief system, I do know that he was really exposed to the teachings of Jesus. This guy, Jack Hayford, myself and others. And I would just tell you that at times like this, it's when we begin to think, especially for many of us that we've gotten older, than we were a few years ago. It's a time that we think about, like, well, what do I think about the mysteries, right? What do I think about God and afterlife, and what do I believe about God, Jesus, and all the big picture, And I would just encourage you, if you're kind of a spiritual seeker or you've kind of slowed in your thoughts, these are the times that, after all the distortion and noise of our life, that we kind of tend to think like, yeah, where is Chris? Am I going to see him again? What's it going to be like? How does that happen? And so I would encourage you, with all the things that you know about Chris, to remember and hold those things dear. Like, don't forget the stories. Keep them alive in your heart. Keep them alive in your speech. I'd encourage you, when somebody leaves and we start to think about all the excellent things about him, I just go, man, do that. Be that in the world. Right? So, man, if he encouraged you, be an encourager of other people. If he made you laugh, bring humor into the world, man. The world is so dang serious and so discouraging in so many ways, and like Chris brought light into that, right? So I'd encourage you, be like Chris. Take what you know to be true about him and follow in his path. Bring humor, humility, joy, bring art, encouragement. And I pray that you'll seek what it is that's the answer to the big mysteries. And for me, that's been ultimately in the person of Jesus. And that may be your story, may not. You may be in the midst of your journey. But if you are, I'd just encourage you to seek in the way that I did, in the way that Chris did. And the easiest way to do that is really just to read this book called The Gospel of John in the New Testament, about this incredible dude who did incredible things, said beautiful things, and brought light and love everywhere he went. And so I'd encourage you on your journey. And so I'd like to close this with a word of prayer. Oh, there's somebody standing behind me. Is it the police again?
You're curious about how Chris felt. Well, I know Jack Hayford. I know Jesus. I know Chris very well. I grew up with Chris. I'm Colette Lovejoy's brother. So I knew Chris from way back, from the bands and all that stuff. When my dad died in 2016, I posted some things about him. I've died before. So I know what it's like to die. It's actually very nice. It's the best thing, for all of you who don't know what it's like to die, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. It changed my life. It let me know I'm acceptable. Whether I'm good, bad, or whatever, I'm God's gift to you guys, and you guys are his gift to me, and you're also my family. All of you are my extended family. If you really knew where you come from, and when I was going back, I was going home. I knew this was over here. So I had been there before. I was going back. I wasn't just all of a sudden going somewhere. So I knew where I was going, and I was surrounded in love. When my dad died, he was a very great man. He didn't claim to be Christian or anything else. He was one of the best Christian men I ever met. He was one of the best men I ever knew. He was just like Chris. And when Chris, when he heard my dad had passed, he also wrote a nice long thing about how my father is now at home in heaven with the Father. So Chris definitely believed. We don't all have to be preachers to believe and carry it in our hearts, but he carried it in his soul, and he shared it in his music. That was his love, and he shared that with all of us. That's awesome. What a heart. Anyways, I just wanted to mention.
Thanks for sharing that, man. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it's a good thing to bring goodness and life and joy into people's lives, man. So I encourage you, I challenge you, don't just, seek, but also just breathe it out into people's lives. My life is better because I had Chris Lovejoy as part of my gift, and yours is too. So take the good thing, man, and just, you know what Jesus said, man? It wasn't Jesus, it was James Taylor, but I hold James Taylor up there high. James Taylor said, shower the people you love with love. Let them know how you feel. So if there's somebody that's unreconciled in your life, shower them with love. Let me pray and close this officially, okay? So, Heavenly Father, we thank you that you said that you are the one who brings down the good and perfect gifts. And even us imperfect people can be a perfect gift to those around us. So, let us learn from Chris and be that way. And beyond that, I just pray for those who grieve, that they grieve fully and deeply and truly so they can get to the other side of it. And that when people think about Chris, that what they would remember, and what I remember, is this. He was such a funny, humble, beautiful, musical man. And that we'd be more like that too. So, Dad, I pray that in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. So, now the best stories are going to happen right now because people aren't thinking, should I share this, should I not? We want to invite you to stay. There's pictures and paraphernalia, not paraphernalia, there's pictures and that's in your car, we know. There's refreshments and pictures of Chris. There's going to be some music. Don't feel like you need to rush off. This is a celebration of his life, and it ain't done until they turn out the light and Elvis has left the building, all right? So God bless you.
All the stories, all my shenanigans. So these stories are passed on to him. He will pass it on to him. What's so fabulous is that, like, the last 11 years we've been working on this studio, and we'll be in group settings, and he'll bring up I love him very much so.